left him a small amount of money. And the small amount that he hadn't spent immediately ended up in a camera that brought him to college and then to work as a photographer. And I was listening to him, I was very interested in listening to him about his work as a photographer here and why he has taken that other path as well in East Timor, in Guatemala, and now in Madagascar, in photographing in different parts of the world. He said, I think, to me, it was an antidote, that kind of going and working in that way just gave me some connection to reality that was, for him, vital, for him, really rewarding. And I think these photographs are a remarkable example. I've seen, looking at his work online, that these really stand out, if I could say so, in terms of, they were taken in a 3-hour spell. They are one period of time, one moment in a very tragic, dramatic, and still in some way hopeful place. And I think they are beautiful for that. He was brought there by Bernard, as I understand. He just earlier on was telling me that it wasn't his grandmother brought him there, it was actually his son. As his son was working for Habitat, or had been on the trip for Habitat for Humanity, and the son led to the father following a similar course. And I think, and that in turn brought all out there. I think that sort of coincidence of generations coming together is well met here. And I think it leaves you with all sorts of mixed emotions. It leaves you in a mixed sense of the horizon full of rubbish, with children on it, and you know the statistics. 70,000 children in Madagascar die before they're 5. The 18,000 Irish children, population equivalents. 90% of the people living on less than $2 a day, 71% on less than $1 a day, free of poverty. 57 dentists in the whole country. And yet some of these photographs you see a smile, and you have that kind of, that I think the antidote really comes, oh I don't know, get inside your head, I couldn't, but that sometimes says that even in life's toils and travails and tragic savage conditions in some ways, there's still wonder, there's still community, there's still that moments of joy when you're working with someone and you get something from it, some personal relationship that works. And I think when I was listening to what Bernard and Paul talking about people in this community, they came back that time again. This was not an exhibition. Look how terrible, isn't it tragic? They are hopeless, they have nothing at all. They have nothing at all, but they still have that sense of that human relations and that existence, joy of existence that comes through, I think, in these photographs, despite all the conditions that we look and say, how could anyone live in that way? The money to Madagascar has plummeted. 70% of their or 50% of their government budget comes in overseas aid. That has gone to the floor because there was a coup there in recent years. We can buy into these pictures, and in some way help reverse that trend and help those people. But actually, I think it's more people looking at them. It's for yourself to have something that maybe reminds you something about the human condition, that gives you hope and gives you a sense of an antidote to maybe the everyday. Fair play to both of you to make it happen. Thank you.
So, thanks very much, Eamon. This is Bernard Neary, part of a dynamic duo, Bernard and Marie Neary, who are setting up their own charity in Madagascar next year. Give a round of applause and welcome Bernard.
I made a mistake. It was mother and father married that followed the son. Marie is here as well, and was just as part of this work. I should have corrected that.
Having witnessed life in the city dumps of Tananarivo in 2013, the Marie, myself and Paul Kelly teamed up to highlight the issue, and the result of that partnership is what brings us all here tonight. Paul joined us in April of this year, photographing the people as they spent their daily lives making a precarious living from recycling on two talent dumps. And Eamon and Jacka, Nadig on the north side, and in Anusi Matwana on the south side, meeting, talking to, and gaining the trust of the people, photographing their way of life. An industrious people, men, women and children, recycle everything, from glass, cardboard, plastics and paper, to animal bones, ground for fertilizer, and plastic bottle tops, turned into coat hangers. Charcoal is recovered from the embers following regular burnings and done. Decayed matter is recycled as fine quality compost. Even leftover, unwanted bits of plastic are recycled by children who make kites from it and other recycled materials. Paul followed the trucks into the heart of the dump, capturing close-up the full scale of what life is like for those who spend a greater part of their working day on the dumps of Madagascar in order to survive because of lack of opportunity in that country. There is no other outlet for these recycles where I live. The World Bank has noted the lack of new investment, domestic or foreign, in a highly uncertain environment since the coup of 2009. The dart of overall economic momentum, the momentum infrastructure problems, especially in roads and electricity, and the deteriorating governance environment are hurting the short-term prospects of the private sector and its long-term plans, and therefore no significant number of jobs has been created. Madagascar is already one of the poorest countries in the world, and the crisis has only made matters worse. Through Paul's photographs and their inclusion in PhotoFest Ireland, it is hoped that the resulting highlighting of the plight of the child recyclers and the obvious enterprise, hard work and intelligence of their communities could be supported in such a way as to help alleviate their hazardous way of living in a country where acute child malnutrition remains critical, health centres have closed down, and poor families are forced to shoulder the burden of education. And a situation identified as recent as June 2013 by the World Bank. Of course, waste management, disposal and recycling is a global issue, and thanks to the first year pupils at Cabra Community College, Cabra West Dublin 7, and St Thomas's Junior National School, Jonestown, Tallaght, Dublin 24, for their involvement in the Irish end of the project. And you can see that just here to my right. And their genuine interest in both the plight of their peers in Madagascar and in their own green environment. We give a heartfelt thanks to the multidisciplinary team led by Principal Cathy Jones at Cabra Community College and Derby McMahon at St Thomas's for their insightful and fresh approach to this project from an Irish perspective. We met Paul through an interview we gave to Phoenix FM local radio in 2013 with Rachel Devlin, who's here tonight. Rachel and Phoenix FM have supported the project through telephone interviews during Paul's stay, and for this the team is grateful. Thanks also to the Robert and Casey Stanley Chapman Trust for their kind sponsorship of Paul's trip and for the inputs in Madagascar. And to Uni and Fenno, two local Malagasy and a vital part of our team who acted as translators, driver, minders, and are now close friends. Finally, we would like to give a sincere thanks to all those people living and working on the dumps of Tallaght and having shared for allowing us into their community and having shared so generously their lives and experience with us. Thank you and enjoy the music.
So, thank you, Bernard. I'd just like to thank everybody for coming. I hope you all availed of the free Bellini for the first 50 people availed of the free Bellini, and you only came once. You only arrived once. Thank you to Eamon. I asked Dad what Eamon Ryan was like. I said, that fella's a grand steady dad. So I knew he was going to be okay. But Bernard and Marie are the reason that I went to Madagascar and had the opportunity to work at the dump, at the dig. And what I can say is that they're a very special couple. So when you arrive in the heat after 14 or 15 hours and you get that, and Marie is wearing flashing shamrock earrings, you know you're going to have a good time. But beyond having a good time, if you want to get a lot of good work done in a short amount of time, it really depends on the efficacy and the attitude of the people that you're working with. And there's all sorts of challenges working in a hot environment, in a strange environment where you don't know the language, where the potholes are actually dangerous. And Bernard and Marie, it just became apparent that they built up this team of people over in Madagascar that work with them, that know them, that they know, that they can trust. And they work together in a way that's, it's just such an honest way of working. That anybody who wants to enter the raffle tonight, the money will go straight to Money for Madagascar, which is a partner organisation of Bernard and Marie's. So all I can say is it's a really great opportunity for direct aid with no brown envelopes, so to speak. When there's also, I wanted to mention as well, volunteering opportunities over there with Bernard where you can put you in touch with small NGOs and you can go for 3 months, 6 months and you can be part of an organisation and teach children, integrate into society for 3 or 6 months and be put up, and they can facilitate that kind of an opportunity. And I think that would be very helpful in terms of building the links between the Malagasy Irish links. And just finally, I'd like to say I found it very difficult to put a message on this whole show because it's not just an exhibition that's concerned about the people working in Madagascar on the dumps and in those conditions that Eamon outlined. It touches on broader, universal topics of personal responsibility and issues that, I suppose, one story that on the dump, I'll just tell you one story on the dump, where after the 3 hours of that session, Bernard and Marie weren't around. It was just me and the translator, and a gentleman, Harry, invited me to his house, and I was pretty shell-shocked after taking the pictures. And I was taking pictures in the house, because that's what comes naturally. And then the translator just asked me, do you not have any questions for Harry? And I was hot and dehydrated and all of the rest. And I just said the first thing that came into my head, which was, what's the hardest thing about working in the dump? And I thought he'd be saying that it would be the infection or, you know, the usual rats, vectors of infection, disease. And he said the trucks don't come every day. And what he meant by that is that if the trucks didn't come, it meant he didn't have enough food to survive properly for that day. So it was a Good Friday, and it was 3 days without the trucks, and that was pretty horrific for him, and it bowled me over in terms of the answer. And it made me realise the disparity between the developing world and the developed world here. I asked my dad what he thought the message was, and he said, well, maybe it's that we don't have a lot to be worrying about. And that's not true either, or it's not entirely true. Because in modern society we've got so much to worry about, and you know, the things we own end up owning us. And as Eamon pointed out, Mr. Drummond mentioned about the privilege and also the duty that comes with owning property. And really, that's at the crux of it. We're in kind of a power position up here in the developed world, and even with our flourishing homelessness here and all our problems here, we still have the power to open the dialogue. And that's really what's important. What I've laid down here in photographs and what Bernard and Marie have facilitated is that dialogue. And it's only one half of the dialogue. It has become a conversation because you guys are here and you can ask the questions. And when you're working for your companies and you're talking to people or talking to big business, you can ask the questions about their brand identity, or sorry, their brand ethics. The advertising people here can ask about the brand identity. And what it means to them that people are living in such different conditions to what we are, and such difficult conditions. And the only other point I'd like to make, and Eamon mentioned it, there does seem to be an innate happiness to people in these countries, and I've seen it in East Timor and elsewhere, where there's just a beautiful happiness about the people. and a readiness to smile and to celebrate, and even despite the conditions that they're coping with. And I find that very hard to reconcile when I go there and I try and say I'm helping in some way or I'm trying to help in some way. But that happiness, and it came up a couple of times in conversation with Bernard, and we analysed it, and I think, yes, there is a happiness, and it comes from maybe not having the duty of privilege of having property and of having all the things that we have. But they got very excited. The adults got very excited about education and the prospect of education when you discuss that with them. And that's something that they don't really have. And that's something that Bernard and Marie, when they set up their charity next year, they hope to set up a charity, that's their dream. They're going to set up a school and they're going to give education to the people of Nadig and probably other areas as well. So I'd just like to say, support Bernard and Marie, and thank you for supporting the show and opening the conversation. And don't forget to enter the raffle, because all the prizes are here and they're really good. Okay? And finally, I'd just like to make a presentation to Andrea, who's an amazing woman who has offered Eamon and offered